Hello world, welcome to Freehaven. I am June, quite possibly the most skeptical supporter of the Earth 2 project in the VidiWebs. I hope you all are having a fantastic week because I have no idea when the next video will be out. Schedules, they're for big channels, which this is not, but that could all change. If you like what you see and you want me to produce regular content, you know the drill. Smash up the like, hit that subscribe, and maybe it could happen. I just want to give a special thanks to the people who have left me very nice comments, both on YouTube and in direct messages on Discord and in Facebook, and encouraging me to keep on going with this because honestly, I expected to get a lot more hate after opening this channel, but I didn't. So, I appreciate it, and really, on a more serious note, if this is something that you find valuable, if you feel that the kind of content I'm producing benefits the community, or the Earth 2 project overall, please let me know what you think, and, having that feedback really encourages me to keep on going. So today I'm bringing you my first focus video from the perspective of a content creator. We're going to talk about Holobuildings, and not only Holobuildings, but Holobuildings as collectibles and the future of asset creation on the Earth 2 platform. As many of you probably already know, I am a fairly accomplished holobuilder. So from the moment I learned about Holobuildings and that we were going to be able to make stuff, the thoughts that were going through my head were, how can I make something cool? How can I make a statue? How can I make something that's a work of art on Earth 2 to make it more than buying tiles on a map? And I posted some of my ideas in Discord groups, mostly Lone Wolves, but in a few other places as well. I showed my mock-ups and my ideas for sculptures, and people kind of looked at me like I was crazy. I was getting a lot of comments, no, you can't do that, that's impossible, or you're gonna need too many vertices, there's no way you can do that, impossible. And a lot of people, you don't know me personally, and that's okay. I don't expect every viewer to know me in real life, but I'm gonna tell you something about me. The number one way to get me to do something is to say, that is impossible. It's just how my brain works. Well, many other people, they hear, that's impossible, they'll stop and they'll think, oh, that means don't waste your time, don't bother. It's literally not something that you can do. But the part of my brain that encodes language and decodes language and makes them into ideas, it registers as, I bet you can't, to which my answer inside my head is usually challenge accepted or watch me. Now, it took me a while from the first time I saved a blueprint in the Holo editor to when I completed my first detailed Holo sculpture. And going through the dates on the earliest blueprint that I made that I didn't delete to the date that I saved the first detailed, the last save I have on the my first detailed Holo sculpture, it was a Pokemon, and it took about 5 months, and that time was spent first just figuring out how to use the editor, and then I had to figure out my techniques and my workflow, because I have a very methodical process for completing these builds. And then finally, learning how to work around the bugs in the editor that would sometimes cause me to have an entire blueprint bricked after I'd been working on it for a week. And I couldn't make any changes, I couldn't save, and then basically had to start over. And I had to learn how to avoid these things. It was a very difficult learning process in which I often told the Holo editor exactly what I thought about it in very unkind language. And just for that, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back because, damn it, I deserve it. 5 months of tedious hell. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jun, for having the perseverance to make something good. But this isn't a tutorial. And so I want to ask, what is a holobuilding? And that's not a rhetorical question. What do we know about holobuildings? Well, yeah, we all know that they will be able to store resources once they're released, and that those resources will be backdated according to when you first place the holobuilding. Great, but why should we be buying these detailed holobuildings that are artistic in nature when you could just build a different holo with, a simple block with a box with 4 corners with the same volume and be done with it? I mean, if you really wanted, you could even do a box with 3 corners, and as long as the volume is the same, the mechanical benefits in Earth 2 at this point are exactly the same as building one of the designs that we builders create on the platform. And this brings me to the topic of the video, which is the future of the creative marketplace in Earth 2. And really, if you believe in the future of Earth 2, if you believe that this platform is going to be a success, the people who are only considering the immediate functionality of holobuildings and holo art are thinking way too small, given that Earth 2 is such a massive project. So I want you to listen to what Shane has to say for a moment. I'm going to show you a clip from one of his recent uploads on his YouTube channel.
And actually, I'm personally heavily focused on. I'm actually kind of pretty much obsessed with creating opportunities in gameplay for creative players. So players that can be creative and then they can sell their creativity to other players. That's really important to us. So this is not like us creating things and selling everything in game to you as the player, as it kind of traditionally works. So as many of you know, the way that game platforms traditionally work is you have one centralized owner of the platform. Give it, League of Legends or Fortnite or whatever it may be. You can, in League of Legends example, you can purchase your champion. You can also earn them as well, sometimes through various gameplay, but if there's a specific champion that you want, you have to purchase it, or you have to play the game a lot to get that champion. And you can buy different skins for that champion, have different experiences. Fortnite, you can get different skins and you represent it in different ways inside the game. But when you buy those digital assets, it's directly linked back to your account, but you can't sell it to other players. So you can't modify it, you certainly can't create the thing from scratch, which is kind of what we're doing in Earth 2, which is already evident today. I'll talk about that in a moment. But you're not able to sell those assets, those digital assets, once you purchase them in game, and that is something that I don't strongly believe in. I think buying a digital asset should kind of be like, forgive the analogy, but it should kind of be like you go down to the toy shop and you buy a toy. If I want to sell that toy to somebody else, I can do that. Is it going to be less money? Yeah, maybe. Digital assets, sometimes it might be more money. It could be a collectible that I've purchased and I could sell it for more. So I'm a big believer in that. And I know there's a lot of the Web3, just off on a tangent, the the Web3 and like blockchain, NFTs, things like this. I know there's a lot of people who abuse that technology, and therefore a lot of people call it a scam. They call it whatever, but you know, they're the people who are abusing the technology. The technology itself is really quite interesting, and I'm a big believer in it, and I can't wait to get Earth 2 into that solution that so many people are building all over the world. So many developers are working to this, you know, Web3 and the different blockchains and proof of stake and what have you. So that's how like centralized gaming platforms work, and for me personally, that doesn't interest me. I'm kind of obsessed with creating ways for players to be able to create things, be creative, and then sell that to other players if that player wants to buy. And the holy grail for me is that those things that they're selling also have utility and purpose inside of Earth 2. So this is also very important.
So if Shane's endgame is to be believed, then Earth 2 is going to be a place with a vast market for assets created by, he says players. I kind of hate that term. I'm gonna say users, where Shane says players. Created by, now I'm saying players. Created by users that have signed up for the platform. And again, if everything that we've been told comes to pass, minted as NFT, that's non-fungible token, onto a blockchain, so that you'll have true ownership of whatever you buy in Earth 2. And before we go any farther, I want to say that I have near infinite faith in technology, if not necessarily the Earth 2 platform. And I think this might come from my generation. I'm the class of 1999. And so in my childhood, when I was growing up, internet was not a household word. And, you know, I was living in the world of Stranger Things, really. I mean, it was the 80s when I was a little kid, and that gave me the opportunity to watch the internet explode into the public consciousness while I was in high school via AOL. And but actually, I mean, even before then, I was going on BBSs. When I was about 12 years old, 12, 13, I started in middle school. So I was online before most people. And yeah, I'm a geek. No apologies. But I mean, I think that my generation as an early millennial is that people who are about my age, who were lived at the same time when they were young, they got to witness this birth of technology that quite literally changed the entire world. And there's not many other generations that can say that. And I'm just thinking back to when I was in, you know, early high school, and, you know, people were saying like about the Nintendo 64, like, oh, you know, I don't know, like, you know, they're ever going to be able to make better graphics than this because, you know, we're reaching the limits of what's physically possible with technology. And look where we are today. And when it comes to making things possible with technology, I mean, it's almost like a religious faith inside of me, where it's not a question of if we're going to do something, it's when. It's just figuring out how to do it. And the more demand there is for something, the faster we move toward that goal. And it's this perspective that makes me feel confident that if not Earth 2, something like it will succeed. And I'm hoping that it's Earth 2. But I mean, really, it could be anyone. And for that reason, it doesn't bother me that we don't currently have readily available technology that makes it possible to have a completely immersive virtual reality where we can see and taste and touch things, or even just a streaming 3D world that's a 1-to-1 scale of the entire planet Earth. I mean, it just doesn't bother me because, again, it's not a question of if we're going to be able to get there. It's a matter of how are we going to do it and how long is it going to take us to figure it out. And that's really why I don't really have any problem supporting something like this as a person that does understand a bit about technology. I mean, just because we don't have something now, it doesn't mean that somebody's not going to create it. And quite frankly, market demand is a huge driving force in product development. So the more people who do support things like this, the more chance that we're going to get there sooner as we attract, the brightest minds in the industry to working on this project and figuring out how to make it work. Okay, so I got a little sidetracked there. So back to the real topic, which is about the creative marketplace on Earth 2. In the future, I believe that looking towards the future as this platform is developed, that we're going to see, of course, a lot of people making E2 assets on their own, the same way that you see people and artists and creators in E1 making things and selling them on Etsy. And there's also going to be the heavy hitters out there, the quality brand names that you can trust that are known for delivering luxury, that are known for delivering high quality content and products that people can trust. And for those elite creator brands, people are going to want to collect those creations. It's the same as people collect things in E1 that align with their interest. You have people collecting trading cards. You have people collecting rare books, comic books, classic movie memorabilia, even Nike shoes. Like, how many times have you seen a celebrity with a wall full of Jordans? I mean, people collect products of the brands that have emotional significance to them and high standards of quality. And now here is me speaking as a creator. I want Earth 2 to succeed because I want to be one of the first elite brands in this corner of the metaverse. I intend to be a high-end creator in this virtual world. I don't want to be Amy's Jewelry from Etsy. I don't want to be Amy's Jewelry. I want to be fucking Tiffany's. I want to be Marvel. I plan to be one of the biggest names in Earth 2 assets when the time comes. And how am I going to do it? By planning now, starting early, and thinking about new ways to utilize the platform that gets people excited. So now I get it. A lot of you are probably watching this and listening to me go on about, big name brands and digital assets. And you're probably thinking, okay, but Earth 2 has Holobuildings. We don't have anything special. And that is a valid viewpoint, considering what we've seen from Earth 2 right now. But what most of you don't know is that for every single 3D sculpture I've made in the Holo editor, I have a 3D model ready to be brought over to the Earth 2 platform as an in-game asset. They will be made available in plenty of non-proprietary textures like granite or glass or ice for ice sculptures, or metal or marble or wood or ceramics. I mean, the possibilities are so numerous. And they'll be ready to be brought in over there. And of course, this is all dependent on, Earth 2 living up to their ideals of allowing for these player creations to enter the platform. Also, it's worth pointing out that it's not only me that will have access to these models. I mean, really anyone that follows the same workflow that I do, and I'll be talking about that in future videos, how I make my detailed sculptures, they will have these models too, because the first step in creation is making a model. And then after you have that model, you convert it into like a Lego sculpture and then use that as the basics for a build plan in the Holo editor. Anyway, moving on, like most people, like when you look at the map, I think that because people are able to get such huge amounts of land, they sometimes forget how big their Holobuildings are. Like my most famous sculpture is Suji, the jumping girl. It was the one that was featured in Shane's video, and a lot of people don't realize that if you were to look at these Holobuildings, if you were to look at that one in a virtual reality rig, that she would be standing about as tall as the Seattle Space Needle, which to me is actually pretty awesome, because I was really inspired by national monuments like the Statue of Liberty, Mount Rushmore, and also fantasy monuments like the Titan of Braavos in Game of Thrones. But if I'm being honest, that's not the real reason why all of my human form sculptures are so big. The real reason is because of limitations in the Holo editor, because it's extremely limited and we don't have a lot of functionality that we really should have as creators, which causes a whole lot of problems. For example, we have no way of selecting all of the polygons in a build to mass resize. And even if we did have that capability right now, if you were to resize something as detailed as the sculptures that I create, the vertices in the design on the blueprint would be so close together that the blueprints wouldn't save, or if by some miracle that it actually did save, you wouldn't be able to place it on the map without errors. That, however, is a topic for another video. I fully intend to review the Holo editor and its features or lack thereof in another video, so keep your eyes open for that. Now, recognizing that the vast majority of people do not want or need enormous ladies all over their plots, I'm also going to be introducing this model in smaller sizes, either human size or public park art sculpture size, or even really tiny ones for when we have avatars that can be held in your hand. If we go back to what Shane was saying in his video about wanting player creations to have utility, an example of this is when we learned that they were going to be integrating drone with the Earth 2 platform, my immediate thought was to create statue gardens so that statues of varying sizes would be placed all over the map, and the drones would have to weave in and out of them like a maze. And, they'd be fighting through, a collection of statues. I also imagine having like a really big statues where a drone could fly in through, a hole or an orifice and come out and go through an internal maze inside of the statue and then come out another hole. For example, a mouth or an ear, or I don't know what you might have been thinking. So shifting the focus back toward collectibles, and specifically Holobuildings as collectibles, I'm sure that there are people who are watching that are still saying, okay, great, I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, all Earth 2 has to offer right now are Holobuildings. And this is where the idea of Holobuildings as collectibles comes into play. Due to the publicly visible and dated transaction history of every single property on Earth 2, as long as you can click on and find the plot, we are able to verify when properties were purchased, by who, and from who. Due to the Holobuilding market not yet being live on the Earth 2 website, the only way that Holobuilders currently have to sell their work is to either place it on a property and then sell that plot on the open market, or to have someone sell them the land that they want their Holobuilding to be on for a very cheap price, like 10 cents or even 1 cent. And then the Holobuilder artist places the building on that property and then sells it back to the person buying the Holobuilding for the cost of their labor or the cost of the Holobuilding, whichever one you want to call it, plus the cost that Earth 2 charges to place the Holobuilding on that property. And then they just sell it back for that price. And then effectively, it transfers the ownership of that Holobuilding to the buyer. And this means that every single Holobuilding that we've sold can be traced back to our accounts. And I'm going to demonstrate this by showing you one of my own Holobuilding transactions with a customer. Give me a second here. Okay, so this is a person who purchased 2 of my Suji the Jumping Girls sculptures, and this transaction was not I did not receive $dollars for this transaction. Instead, he gave me an exchange of land in exchange for the Holobuildings, which is why, which in a few seconds, just a moment. So here is the Holobuilding he bought from me, Suji the Jumping Girl. Oh, okay. My browser's being a bit wonky here. There we go. I love this placement. Yeah, apparently my software is struggling to let me rotate this. Okay, so yeah, here she is. And so I sold this to him in exchange for a couple of lands. And the way this worked is, let's go down to the transaction history. You can see right here on 310, he sold me this plot of land for 1 cent right here. And so overnight, I kept it, and then I placed the Holobuilding on the plot. And with the current state of Earth 2, this sometimes takes quite a long time. This actually took me like 6 hours to place because it wouldn't save for some reason. But anyways, we finally got it done. and then then I placed a bid on the properties that he was going to give me as payment. And as soon as he accepted the bid, he sent me a bid to buy this property back. And you can see he sent me a bid for 10 cents. And then I accepted his bid after I had been paid. And then now he owns this plot with the Holobuildings. And this is important because we have the dates. So 3/10, 3/11 of 2022. We have my account name. So everybody who sees author Jun Prince, they know it's me, that it's a legitimate, like at some point, I had this plot in my possession, which means that there's a high likelihood that I was in fact the person that placed this Holobuilding on this plot. And let's see here. So yeah, and the date is important. Let me get this off of my screen just a moment. And so these publicly available dates are important for a number of reasons. For one, we builders on the Earth 2 platform can use this data to, for example, offer promotions. Let's say, like, we say something like, anybody who purchased a Holobuilding before, March of 2022 will, get a free something when we can sell more things on the platform. Or everybody who purchased on the week of January 1st for the new year can have 30% off of whatever we're charging for the Holobuildings that we place on the map. Other possibilities for ways that we builders can use this data is to say something like, when we can mint these 3D objects as NFTs, then we can look at the dates when somebody says, hey, we can offer a bonus to our first customers and say something like, hey, if you bought a Holobuilding from me, within, such and such date and such date, I'm going to give you a free NFT sculpture with the texture of your choice and size of your choice. And we can then, then a customer would say, hey, I want to claim that NFT, and they'll link me to the property, and then I'll be able to see, okay, does this property, like, was this sculpture purchased on this date? Yes. Okay. And then I would be able to give you that NFT, or, any other Holobuilding creator would be able to give that NFT to our customer as, a thank you gift for being one of the first supporters of our Earth 2 art. And, I'm thinking of lots of ways to use this kind of information. And the idea of linking these 3D model NFTs to our Holobuilding sculptures, I haven't quite figured it out yet. I don't have the details, but it'll probably be something like everybody who purchased one of my Holobuildings before a certain date will get a copy of that Holobuilding as a sculpture when we're able to mint NFTs. And then maybe something like for Patreon subscribers, like maybe they will get 2 of the NFTs in different textures and sizes if they want, or 3 for higher tiers. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. And this is all assuming that it doesn't cost like $200 or, $100 just to mint the NFT and send it to someone. I'm looking at you with Ethereum. You make me very disappointed. Hopefully Shane comes up with a way to make it cost effective to mint these NFTs. And so I'm thinking along the lines of that. Although I don't actually have a Patreon account yet, So this is all very like I'm still in the brainstorming phase. I mean, right now the only way I'm selling stuff on Earth 2 and is, by selling plots of land with my Holobuildings on it, or doing the trade thing like I showed you earlier in this video. And this kind of brings me back to the notion of collectibles and Holobuildings as collectibles, because if you spend any amount of time in the Earth 2 Facebook forum, or I'm assuming it's in Reddit, but I actually don't spend a lot of time in Reddit, and the Discord group, you'll always see people saying, well, these are early days. Well, these are early days. Along the same lines, all of the Holobuildings that people sell right now, these are like the first editions of books and first editions of comics. There aren't as many now because the platform isn't as widespread. And really, like, all you have to do, like, just tune into an episode of Pawn Stars, and that'll give you an idea of what that does to the value of collectibles when you have a first edition of something. And because all of the transactions are dated and linked to our usernames, it's very easy for someone trying to verify the authenticity of the sculpture that they bought for the purposes of appraising its value. And when you think of this in terms of, rare books and sports cards, Pokemon cards, or comic books, or really anything of that nature, the Holobuildings that we have now that are dated closer to the first appearance of that Holobuilding anywhere on Earth 2 are going to be valued higher than in, say 15 years from now, when there's been, it's the 30,000th copy of something that's been sold. Okay, that might be a little, exaggerated, but I mean, there's going to be a lot fewer that were sold by, the second day that after the Holobuilding was even completed, compared to, after 5 or 10 years. And so so having a date that is closer to the creation date should increase the values. And, we're really treading into new territory here within the realms of appraisal and NFTs and digital art. But when you do have the dating baked in to the structure of whatever asset you're buying, it makes it so that people can create new categories of appraisal, like saying, either using a date range to assign value, or if Shane decides to take the route of actually numbering every single Holobuilding that's sold on the market and saying, numbers 1 through 500 is worth, this much more, and numbers 1 through 1000 is worth this much more, and numbers, 3000 through 8000 is worth this much, and numbers 10,000 through 25,000 are worth this much. I mean, honestly, as a creator and someone who is interested in collectibles, I really do hope that Shane decides that when they introduce the construct of selling Holobuildings in the market, I really do hope that they have some way to number and track the date of purchase on the land. If I'm lucky, maybe he'll see this video and say, hey, that's something that we're going to start including, and poke whichever team member is in charge of that. Here's being hopeful, but then I have 30 subscribers, so maybe I can't be that hopeful. Anyway, so creation date and, the brand of the person who is making these creations, these are not the only things that should give Holobuildings and later other NFT creations on the Earth 2 platform value. Now, from here on, really for the entirety of this video, but especially from here on, I'm operating on the assumption that Earth 2 is going to be able to deliver what they promise in terms of content and functionality of the platform. I mean, I'm assuming when I say make these claims that, you know, this is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, lifelike metaverses on the planet, and that it's going to be a household name on par with Facebook and, you know, the word internet or Windows. And at this point, it's not just a game anymore. This is a new world that enables people to communicate and interact at a distance in lifelike environments. I mean, I see Earth 2 going to places where people are able to attend class in virtual universities and, you know, enter a VR classroom where they can look around and follow their lectures as if they're and feel like they were actually sitting in a classroom, as opposed to the limitations of remote online learning today where you're just using a webcam. I'm imagining a world where people can virtua commute to work and have meetings with their boss and coworkers in a virtual office, where they share their ideas and plans for projects in a way that feels a lot closer to physically meeting them in the flesh. And what I'm getting at is what we're experiencing now, assuming Earth 2 can accomplish its goals, is that we're seeing the birth of a new world. And with every world, Earth 2's world, this virtual world, one that, again, if they succeed in what they're trying to accomplish, is going to be deserving of its own history. And components of that world, historical components that people can hold on to, are going to have unique value in the same way that antiques from E1 have value to real world collectors. So when we talk about Earth 2 as a project in its early days, think about what we've seen from Earth 2 and Shane's official videos. I mean, go back to over a year ago when we saw that demo of the terrain engine. I believe that as soon as people are able to find those exact tiles that were in that video on the map and replicate it in the 3D environment, those tiles are going to be worth a fortune because they are a part of the unique history of Earth 2. This was the first glimpse that E1 ever had of E2 as a functioning virtual world. And along the same lines, when I think of Holobuildings in the same light, I mean, Shane recently released a video, the same one that from the clip that I played earlier, showing player creations for the first time ever publicly in official social media. It's the first time that Shane ever went on a video and prized player creativity with specific examples from the platform. And I mean, honestly, if I was Lumina or Ship or Niwes or anyone else, even Jethro, I mean, I've kind of forgiven him, but I haven't quite forgiven him enough to sell him a French breach plot for less than market cost. But all the people that were in that video, I mean, I'd seriously be looking at either taking those plots off the market or, bumping those prices way, way up, because of that video, they have become a part of Earth 2's unique history. And looking back, let's say 20 years from now, if Earth 2 becomes this pillar of the metaverse and something that everyone around the world uses, these are going to be historically significant as the first player creations ever showcased by the company, and that gives them value. And in fact, I have done what I just said that I think Lumina and all these other people should have done. I'm not trying to advertise here, but so much as showcase an example. So while I've done my own private sales of sculptures and Suji the jumping girl, the plot that I have on Holobuilding Island that was featured in that video, it's special for more than one reason. Originally it was only special because it was the first ever plot that I listed with a sculpture on it, any sculpture, publicly for sale. And now that that plot has also been showcased in an official Earth 2 video, it has become an integrated part of the Earth 2 history. And for that reason, I'm not gonna lie, I pumped that price, and now a plot that used to be on sale for a few $100s is now up to $1,000 on the market. And I know some people will say that's crazy to spend that much in the for a Holobuilding, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with my assessment of collectibles in Earth 2 and where Earth 2 is going, and don't buy the plot if you don't agree. That's fine. No one's forcing you to. But if you believe in Earth 2 enough to spend thousands of dollars buying tiles because you believe that it's going to be this incredible, amazing, wonderful second world existing on top of our own world, then you should really be considering what kind of things are going to will have significant historic value to that, and what items are going to be the most collectible and the most sought after 20 years from now, at a time when there are millions, even billions of customers that weren't here in these early days. And for me, in my case, because that's really all I'm qualified to talk about, I can't really say what someone else is thinking. If Earth 2 accomplishes its goals, enabling me to become, the Tiffany's of Earth 2, making my brand that big and well known, keeping all of what I've just said in context, I'm not just selling a Holobuilding on this plot. I'm selling a historical artifact directly tied to what will one day become a household name. Two household names, Earth 2, and then by extension, the brand selling the products that people want. Now, moving away from the idea of collectibles, I want to begin exploring NFT use cases beyond simply tracking ownership of digital assets. They can effectively act as true, false, positive, negative access tokens for events and extended content. Let's imagine you're having an E2 party located in E1. No, not even an E2 party. Let's call it an E2 convention or an E2 festival, bringing people that are enthusiastic about E2 together in E1. Now, when we have NFTs on a publicly available blockchain, what we can do is, rather than selling tickets, what you can do is you go into the check-in desk and you give them your user ID, and you tell them that you bought, some NFT, like maybe a car or a sculpture or something, or maybe you don't even have to tell them. They take your username and then they scan for the NFT on the blockchain, and it says, okay, I see that you purchased, let's say, this ice sculpture that grants you access to the convention, and that serves as your payment, and you're welcome to come inside. In a future video, I'm going to be talking about games that are designed to run on top of the Earth 2 platform. I've been kicking around a number of ideas and even started working on some, although it's a little bit difficult because E2 has been so tight-lipped in terms of how games will be integrated into the platform. But once we have them, NFTs can also be used to unlock different content within multiple games, as long as it's readily accessible on a publicly visible blockchain. So, for example, let's say I buy a costume. Let's say I buy a Pikachu costume, and when I log into a game that operates on top of Earth 2, it can check for that costume, and then if the game developers decided to include that, then you can use that costume in the game. And then you go and play another game, it checks the blockchain for that costume, and then you can use that same outfit in multiple games based on your token. Another example would be if you bought some sort of NFT, you can then have access to special stages, or say an arena in a fighting game, or a track for like a Mario Kart style racer. I mean, really the possibilities are endless. I mean, really any kind of situation where you have a true false kind of variable. If false, this happens. If true, then this happens. An NFT can unlock it. So there's a lot more things you can do with it, as sort of like an access card, within the context of Earth 2. Anyway, I think that I'm going to bring this video to a close. I hope I've given you some food for thought and discussion about the long-term prospects of Earth 2. And again, if this is the kind of content you want to see more of, smash up that like, hit that subscribe, show me that I'm doing a good job, and I'll see what I can do about getting more videos just like this, or completely different videos about different topics. Have a good one. Until next time.